This is an oral history interview with Florence Kirkland in her home on December 20th, 1982. The interviewer is Susan Gortner. Mrs. Kirkland, where was your father born and what was his name?
He was, I can't say he was born in Circleville, Ohio, but he came from there. And his name was James E. Rankin.
Uh-huh. And what was your mother's name and where was she born?
Huldah B. Bear in Decatur, born Decatur.
What type of work did your father do?
He was farmer after marriage.
Uh-huh. When did he come to Illinois?
I can't answer that.
Do you know?
I don't know.
If he came as a young boy or...
Oh, young man. Mm-hmm.
And he met your mother here then?
Yes, in Decatur.
Where did they farm?
In Pye County.
Where?
Always.
Where?
At White Heath,
Uh-huh.
between White Heath and Monticello.
How big a farm did he have?
He started out with 40 acres, but bought as he could acreage up to a half section, or maybe a section. I'm not right sure.
How long did your father attend school?
Can't answer.
Do you know about your mother?
No. I was baby of 6 children, and of course I didn't know a lot of the older ones knew.
Did your mother ever work outside the home?
Not that I know of.
Did anyone live with your family besides your brothers and sisters?
My grandmother Bear, my mother's side.
Do you remember her?
Oh yes, I was left at home with her and to care for her in her older days.
Did she tell you stories about her childhood?
I don't remember if she did.
What type of games did your brothers and sisters play?
Games?
What kind of games did you all play when you were growing up?
Oh, we played Black Man Bluff and Drop the Handkerchief. We'd gather together Sunday afternoons and play games of that sort. We didn't have football then, no baseball, no anything like that I remember.
Did your family come into town to shop?
Oh yes. We came in, some of the family would come in every Saturday because Mother sold eggs, butter, and dressed chickens at times.
Where would she sell them? To one of the stores? Or to...
No, personal acquaintances.
How did you come to town?
Well, I can remember when I used to come to town and make the delivery was with horse and buggy. And sometimes the mud was hub deep. And we had an old family horse that we drove to the buggy and carried it that way.
What stores did you shop in Monticello when you came to town?
Oh, mostly I think to Evans Grocery, and Mr. Amke had, but this was rather late to my childhood, really.
Did you ever shop in White Heath?
White Heath wasn't as big town and didn't have the facilities for. We did have a grocery there. We went there for our mail because we didn't have a real route then.
How far were you from White Heath?
About 2.5 miles around the road, but the railroad went right close to our home. And finally I entered.
Did it go by your home too?
Mm-hmm.
Did you ride the Interurban very often?
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
Did you ride into Monticello?
Not too often, because that was close enough and we had our horse buggy, and I was a great rider of the horses. I loved horses. Do yet.
What type of chores did you do on the farm?
Outdoors work, that is chores. Milking and watering. I rode about a mile for watering carloads of cattle. My dad would put on feed, then sell. But I had to make the route and water.
How would you carry the water?
Oh, we had a pump right in the pasture. It's quite a chore, but if it's making of me.
Did you, you had cattle, did he grow any crops?
Oh, yes, he had corn. Oats then, mostly. Some, not much wheat as I remember. But he did have corn, chuck corn, of course, by hand. We milked by hand. But I've never milked another cow. I've milked my share. I'll say that.
Did he use the corn and grains that he grew to feed his own cattle, or did he sell any of them?
No, he fed them, and he had a big cow barn that he had hay up above, and then a hole in the center where he could go up there and put the hay down through the hole in their stanchions. And that's the way we fed him.
Where did you go to school?
Union School, known as Slabtown, close to the, well, it's on Route 10 now, I guess would be. Maybe 72 since they've changed, but it was 10 then.
How far? Excuse me, go ahead.
Not then, it wasn't 10, because we had no hard roads.
How far was the school from your house?
I expect it was close to 2 miles, maybe.
How did you go to school?
Well, when it was nice, we walked. But if it was rainy and bad that way, we would ride a big black mare and turn her loose when we got to school, and she'd go home.
How many would ride on her?
Oh, well, it was just 2 of us at a time, because that's all it was. Sometimes we boarded the teacher, and the teacher would ride to school with us on the mare.
And then you turned her loose and the mare would go home?
Oh, yes.
How would you get back home then?
Well, if it was bad, they'd come after us. And we walked many a mile over the wire fences through snowdrifts,
How often did your teacher live with you?
Well, she would come the weekend. She would go home, or he, whichever it was, and they was there through the school week.
Did you like having the teacher live with you?
Well, it was all right. We didn't mind.
Yeah.
It was just another one in the family, really.
How many kids were in your school?
Well, that varied. And it got down to where it wasn't too many. But they had the different classes, and that way,
What was a typical school day like?
Well, we gathered. The bell rang at 9. We went in first. Sometimes we had to sing a song, and before we started our schoolwork. Then it went off as first grades up, And I think that about the day's work. We had spelling bees then and things of that kind.
Did you sit on long benches, or did you each have a desk?
Well, we would have desks where we'd sit, but when we went to class, we sat on long seats up in front of the classroom.
Did you work on slates?
Yes, we had slates, and of course, chalk blackboards.
What kind of books did you have?
Oh, we had reading, arithmetic, and writing, history and geography, physiology.
How many years did you go there?
I went there through the 8th grade.
Then did you go on to school someplace else?
No, I didn't go to high school. Father asked me if I wanted to go to high school like the others did. I said, no, all I want to be is a farmer's wife. And that's what I was.
So you went to was it Unity School? Through all your 8 years? What did you take for lunch?
Oh, jelly and apple butter sandwiches and things like that. Fruit. We always had lots of fruit on our farm. So,
was the school kind of cold in the winter?
No, we didn't suffer. I didn't think too much of the cold. We had a big heater that sat pretty well in the center, maybe about a third of the way up into the building. And that way we'd get heat.
What did you do after you finished your 8 years of school?
My father retired at the age of 65, moved to Mama Saw and building a home. And we all moved to Mama Saw. That is my youngest brother and I, and Mother and Daddy moved to Mama Saw. Lived there, but I was very unhappy.
Why?
Because I didn't like town.
Oh.
I liked the country better. And of course, I didn't know hardly what to do with myself. I finally got a job with my youngest brother. He worked at the Pepsi. I worked there a week. There was no enjoyment to me at all.
What did you do there?
Scanned the papers for ads.
You just scanned?
Pepsi. Pepsi ads.
Oh.
And then I think it was just about a week is all I worked. I wasn't satisfied. So I stayed home. Finally I went to business college. Prepared myself for stenographer.
Where did you go to business college?
Champaign Brown's Business College.
How long did you go there?
I think only about 9 months, but long enough to what we call now graduate. But we didn't get any certificates. I didn't, anyway. But penmanship, shorthand, typing was my specialties. Prepared myself for that.
How would you go to school? Did you live over there?
No, we went on the Interurban from Monticello to Champaign.
How much did it cost you to ride in?
I can't just exactly answer you. It wasn't too expensive.
How would you get
then
from the station?
Well, we walked because it was right in Monticello and the station was there.
In Champaign, though, how did you get to?
Well, it was close enough.
Was it close? Who paid for you to go to school?
Well, you might say I borrowed the money. My mother had her bank account, which wasn't much, just from poultry and eggs, butter, and things like that she'd have left over, she'd put in the bank. Well, she paid my way through school, and the first money I made, I paid for my schooling.
Where did you work after you got out of school?
I was at the Farmers Bank 2 years, Monticello.
Where was the Farmers Bank located?
On the south side where the florist shop is now. But there was another store in there, I think Levin. Maybe he wasn't there yet, but it was right in that area, right there where the floral shop is, and then the Farmers State Bank was closed.
What did you do at the Farmers Bank?
Stenographer, and wherever, if there happened to be a shortage at the window, I worked at the window some.
When did the Farmers Bank close?
Oh, it must have been maybe 1914. Now, I can't say it for sure on that, but I know from when I was married, the date, that figure that was it. I also worked for Judge Shunkwiler, Robert's father, and Mr. Edie, who was Master in Chancery. They shared time for the two of them.
What kind of work did you do for them?
Law work.
Did you enjoy that?
Yes. I was a court reporter for a short time.
Were you? That should have been interesting.
That was interesting.
Do you remember any particular cases?
There was one case. A friend's son had an auto accident, killed a man, and I was on that case. And we cleared the boy because it was a fault of both at a crossroad. So that's that.
When you were a court reporter in those days, did you have to write down everything they said by longhand?
Oh yes, I took it down shorthand, but we read it back by shorthand, of course.
How many words could you do a minute?
Oh, I don't know.
You must have
I never tried that after I got to working. But I will say this, after you take shorthand, it spoils your spelling because you make characters as they sound.
You must have been pretty fast to keep up with the talking in court. How long did you work for Judge Shunkwiler?
Well, I worked for Mr. Shunkwiler, I expect a year. Between he and Mr. Edie, their offices were closed. And whenever either one could use me, well, that's where I worked there. But at the same time, I was at the bank, my full time.
Oh, you were at the bank too then. You were a busy person.
Yes, kept me busy. I was satisfied.
And you were still living at home at that point?
Oh, yes.
Were those your first jobs? Had you had any jobs before, except for your week at Pepsin?
No. Nothing, only I had a brother who lived in Urbana, and when he was married, he ever needed help. Why, Florence, can you come over and help me? I'm swamped. So I went. Brother Roy.
When you were working at those two jobs and living at home, what did you do with your earnings?
But bank.
Did you have to pay room and board?
Oh, no. No, I didn't, but if there was something special I wanted for the table, I got it. Furnished it that way. We had no trouble that way.
How did you meet your husband?
At church.
What church was that?
United Brethren, White Heath.
Uh-huh. How long had you known your husband?
I never knew him before then.
Mm-hmm.
But after that, I knew him 4 or 5 years before we were married.
Do you remember the first time you met him?
Oh, yes, it was right there at church.
Did you start dating?
Not right away.
What was your husband's name?
Florence W. Kirkland.
And where was he born?
At Lodge, I think, the little village up the Wabash Tracks.
What would you do on a typical date?
Oh, the thing that I remember doing, there were about 6 or 7 couples who kind of chummed together. Of Sundays afternoons, we would gather at some one of the girls' homes, play out in the yard, different games that you play on foot. And just had a good time that way. Then sometimes there would be suppers at the White Heath. Then the Royal Neighbor and Woodman would have rabbit. They'd go rabbit hunting, have a rabbit fry or something like that.
Did you have socials at church?
Not too often then. As I remember. Of course, I was young one in the family, and my youngest brother, when he got big enough that he could go with me, well, we went a lot to old maybe shows or something like that.
Where would you go to the show?
Here at Mount Sol. It was Nickelodeon then, but they don't have them anymore.
No. Do you remember what you thought of your first show you saw?
No, I don't remember.
Did you work for Mr. Schockweiler until you were married then?
Mr. Reedy.
And Mr. Edie?
That morning.
Do you recall where you were when your husband asked you to marry him?
No, it just kind of fell all in an agreement together, I guess.
What was your wedding like?
We just went to Decatur on the Interurban, got married, and come home. That was it.
Where did you live then?
I lived in town.
No, I mean after you were married.
Oh, well, we were married in March, and of course, as farming would come on, we lived in the country, which he did and was farming when we were married.
Where was his farm?
He farmed his father's farm up a lodge.
How big a farm did he have?
200 acres then to farm.
Did you have hired men?
Oh my, yes.
Did you have to cook for them?
Oh yes, that was fun.
Did they have separate quarters, or did they live with you? Or?
Oh no, well we usually had just men that we'd pick up there in the little village lodge that would work for us. And we didn't have to have one steady then, but we farmed with horses, not tractors.
What were your jobs on the farm?
Well, chickens, the garden, and housekeeping. And then when the chores come of an evening, I helped with the chores outdoors.
How many men would you feed during harvest season?
Well, at that time, did our thrashing with a big thrashing machine. And I was kind of a tomboy, I guess you'd call it. I was the youngest one of the family. And we would cut the oats and have men to shock the bundles into shocks. And then when we thrashed, they would go through and pitch. We had men on the ground to pitch the sheaves up into the rack and then haul them into the... And I had done everything but shuck corn. I pitched the machine, I hauled, run the dirt team, anything that pertained out chores around the farm line. My goodness, you'll have a book when you get done.
Did you have the country doctor come when you were growing up or after you were married very often?
No.
What kind of remedies would you give to your children and did your mother give to you?
Well, to tell you the truth, after I was married and we had our family of children, 6, we had very little sickness that we couldn't just remedy a cold, you know, with Vicks or something like that.
So you were very fortunate.
Oh, yes. I have always been fortunate.
Were you ever quarantined?
No.
Not when you were a child either?
I've been very healthy. Am yet. Other than this arthritis is kind of getting me. Kind of tough.
Did you have your children at home?
Everyone.
Did you have the doctor help you?
Oh, yes. I had a doctor.
What doctor did you have?
Had Dr. Barker from Whiteheath, Dr. Walker from D-Land, Dr. What was his name? He lived in Beamont. And he was good though. I can't recall his name. It hit me too soon. But we didn't doctor with him very much.
Yeah.
Didn't have to. But even at that age, the child was born home, and he said, I never had been to the doctor. I was healthy and had no troubles. I never had gone to him all the time I was pregnant with this last child.
How far apart were your children? How many years?
The first 2 was 11 months, I think. And I don't know the next. I just don't keep track of that. Just North remembered. I don't think I haven't.
Yeah.
But I do know that there was 7 years from the 5th to the 6th. There was 7 years in there.
So they were spread apart then?
Yes, they was. I never had too close.
So you had 6 children. How many girls and how many boys?
3 girls and 3 boys. And my parents had 3 girls and 3 boys.
What churches and organizations have you belonged to?
Oh, dear. You don't want to change the name of the church, do you?
Whatever you want.
Well, I went all the time Whiteheath to the United Brethren. Before I was big enough to go out and kind of go for myself, I went to the little church at Lodge, where my folks belonged. We went Mennonite in the winter in a big bobsled with bricks heated to our feet to help us keep warm.
What was the church? Is it
Church of God.
Is it still there? Is the Church of the Brethren, United Brethren, still in Whitehead?
It has merged with the Methodist Church there.
But it's still located in the same place?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we moved to Bement, I went to the Bement Methodist Church.
When did you move to Bement?
1970. I just can't tell you.
Was it after you had... Your husband, did you spend most of your married life on your farm near Lodge?
No.
No. Where did you go then?
We went to Bement.
To another farm?
To another farm, 13, 15 years there. When my husband died and we had to move, the farm sold. The man that bought wanted to farm it, so we had to move. Then I landed on a little farm, 200 acres, and that I whipped with my children. The oldest one was married.
Okay, you were telling us about after your husband died. Then you
I moved to this 200 acres, and I lived there until I put my youngest one through high school. Then I moved to Monticello because I couldn't live out there by myself. He was in the Navy. He graduated and was in the Navy.
Where was the farm? The 200 acres?
You go out. It was a mile west of Lodge and about a half mile south. Right in there somewhere.
When did your husband die?
1940.
So you had to raise the children on your own for a while?
Oh, yes. Bob, that's the youngest one. After he graduated, we lived there 5 years by ourselves. And then finally, things began to get bad in the country. Children wanted me to move to town where I'd be neighbors closer around.
Was it difficult to raise your family during the Depression?
My husband lived during the Depression. No, it wasn't so hard because we had always been careful, didn't have a lot of debts to be paid when Depression came up. We just lived on what we could.
Did you have any money in the bank that you lost during when the banks closed?
We went through 2 bank closings, but we managed to.
Which banks?
One at D-Land and one at Monticello was Moore's Bank.
Did both banks eventually pay off most of your money?
Well, we never suffered and never had much in it to lose.
Did you have any trouble getting enough food during the Depression?
Oh, no, we didn't because we raised a lot.
What about some of your neighbors and friends?
Well, we just everybody did for themselves, seemed like.
Was there any trouble with rationing when you got into World War II?
Oh, yes. Then's when I had to be careful. Because farming, when Clarence passed, I just went right from where he left off into the field and farmed. And that's where I learned how to go through the depression.
What kind of things were rationed during World War II?
Oh, we had to ration gasoline and tires. Things for on the table. We hardly ever had any trouble that way. But the other way, why, I had to have it farm with. Then we farmed with tractors.
How
Yes.
how much gas could you get a month?
What we needed.
Okay.
Now I can't answer you how much.
Did you get coupons for it?
What is it?
Did you get coupons for it to get your gas?
No, I don't think, but they kept tab. What you used it for was what. But we didn't do any going. We didn't any riding unnecessary or anything like that. And Bob and I, we had horses that we rode, and we went. That was our pleasure.
Yeah. Were any of your sons involved in World War II?
Oh, yes. One son and a boy made his home with us, and plenty grandsons all the way.
Do you recall what you were doing when you heard about Pearl Harbor?
No. No, I was too young then,
Did
I guess.
where were your son? Where was your son stationed?
Well, Dale, wherein he eventually left the States, he went to Europe, across Germany and all, and the other boy went to Japan. 5 years of it. So I've seen all the war I want to see.
I imagine. Did you get fairly frequent letters from him?
Oh, yes. Sometimes they were censored, you know.
Were they ever injured at all?
Not too badly. Dale got a knee hurt that bothers him always, but not so bad. Never got anything for it.
So you were very lucky.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
You started to tell us about the organizations you belong to. What organizations have you belonged to?
Well, when I was in church, I did a lot of teaching of the little ones. And then when moved to town, well, before I ever moved to town, it was while we were in Vivian, Home Bureau. And after Clarence was gone, I was Farm Bureau. And I did some voluntary work for Farm Bureau and the Women's Committee.
What did you do for them?
Well, I was chairman of the group, and we would have our special meetings on annual meetings at Chicago when they'd have their annual meeting for Farm Bureau. It was very interesting. I liked it. It just gave me something to do. I mean,
Did you tell me that you were instrumental in helping organize the Farm Bureau for this area?
not the Farm Bureau,
What?
the Women's Committee of the Farm Bureau, but it was just voluntary. It was very interesting. I liked it all the way through Piatt County, from the north to the south.
What type of things did you do?
Well, I had my committee, and we had our regular meeting, and things that we could help push Farm Bureau, things like that.
Now, about what year was this that you were doing that?
Oh,
You said it was after your husband died?
oh yes.
Was it during World War II?
I don't believe that I was in that during the war. I wouldn't say for sure.
So it might have been after World War II.
It that was 43. Dale came home. I can't say just what year. 59, though, was when my last papers came up from the Women's Committee. I've been going through that since I've been out of the home. It's interesting.
Who were some of the other members on your committee?
Oh, there was Mrs. Warren from Mansfield, Clardine, and Pearl Alexander then. She's now Mrs. Haynes. And oh, you've asked me some sudden questions. And you know, as I'm getting older, why, my memory's not so. I can't remember dates so much. I have been looking up some of the lately of dates of the committees I was on, annual trips that I made to Chicago and all. It's interesting.
When did you get your first radio? Was it after you and your husband were married?
Oh, yes. We had one.
What was your first radio like?
Oh, it was a big, nice cabinet-size radio.
What type of shows did you listen to?
Well, then, you know, the barn dance was very popular. We listened to that on Saturday night a lot. Of course, through the week we didn't have time for radio much because kiddies were in school and Clarence always farmed, and that's hard work because he did it with horses.
When did you get your first automobile?
In about 1919, possibly 1919, something like that.
What type of car was it?
Oakland.
What did you think of the automobile the first time you saw it?
Well, I thought it was pretty fun. It was a nice little roadster. The next one we got was a Ford, and I didn't think it was near as nice as the Oakland. But from then on, we drove a lot of Dodges.
What president do you remember most vividly? What president do you recall most vividly?
President Lincoln.
What?
The present one, I reckon.
Oh.
No, I wouldn't say that. I don't know.
Did you listen to Roosevelt and his fireside chats?
Not too much. Not.
Well, I appreciate you letting us interview you, and thank you.
Oh, poor job. I couldn't.